Piaget noted that preoperational children are no longer limited to sensory motor intelligence because of the fact that they have the ability to think symbolically or use symbolic thought. Now, he also noted that the reason he called them preoperational or pre-logical is because logic is difficult during this stage of development due to certain limitations. He named 5 specific limitations to the development of logic during the early childhood stage. The first one is what he called centration. Piaget believed that during this stage of development, children usually tend to center or focus on one idea only at a time, to the exclusion of any other ideas. So, for example, if you were to ask a child about their parent, they might have a very hard time believing that their mom or their dad is also a brother or a son at the same time. To them, their dad is only a father and cannot be also a brother to somebody else or the son of someone else. I see this in our preschool a lot when you ask a child about their teacher and where does their teacher go after school. To them, the teacher is just a teacher. So for them, the teacher can only be found at school. So she cannot be also a mother or have her own house or be seen outside of school shopping at a center or at a grocery store. That usually throws them off. So centration is a trait or a limitation, according to Piaget, that makes logical thinking very hard during this stage of development. Now, what comes out of centration or a type of centration is also the concept of egocentrism. And that is that the child not only centers on one concept or one idea at a time, but he also tends to focus on it from one perspective, and that is their perspective only. And that is what we call egocentrism. So it's a form of centration where young children tend to think about the world from their own personal perspective. So the teacher is only a teacher because she only teaches them. She can only serve them. Her role is to only serve them. She cannot be also a mother or a wife to someone else. There's a funny experience that I had with my son during one of our interactions when his dad took him to buy a gift for my birthday. And he said that he had a hard time convincing him not to get me Power Wheels for my birthday because to the child, that gift was something that they thought would make me happy because it's what made him happy. So thinking about the other from a perspective that is different or not similar to the child is a limitation that makes logical thinking unattainable during this stage of development, according to Piaget. The next limitation, according to Piaget, is focusing on appearance. So during this stage, young children ignore all other attributes that are not apparent. So a thing is what it is because that's how it looks. It does not mean that it could take on a different form. So if you look at a child who is dressed up, let's say in a doctor costume, the child really focuses on the appearance of how that person is because of his dress code. So if you were to ask a child to put on high heels, that child will think or really believe that they are now acting like a mommy, or they are dressed up in a format that makes them that person or that character because they really believe in what they look like right at that moment. So that also makes it really hard for a child to accept that people can look like something and not be that something. So if you were, let's say, to ask a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old about a friend who had a long hair, they might be stuck on the fact that if you have long hair, then you must be a girl. You cannot be a boy and have long hair, because they are focused on the appearance of that person, not the fact that male, female has nothing to do with it. So dressing up in high heels makes you a mommy. A boy cannot have long hair because that's a girl. So those are specifics to what they're focused on at that moment. And that's why it's illogical stage of development. It does not follow logic according to Piaget. The next limitation is the fact that children are limited by their static reasoning. So when you try to reason with a child about things that happened before or might happen in the future, you will find that there is a limit to their ability to think in that perspective. So children do not really comprehend the concept that they were at one point in mommy's tummy. They really do believe that moms have always been moms. They were never babies, or that they were not babies at one point, or they wore a diaper at one point, or that they're going to grow up to be a daddy at one point, or a mommy at one point. So whatever is now has always been and will always be. That is static reasoning, and that is an example of how children are limited in their logical thinking according to Piaget. The last limitation according to Piaget is the concept of irreversibility. And this means that young children really think that nothing can be undone. And that is also the reason why a lot of them get stuck in their habits or in the way things look, because they really cannot go back to how to undo something that was done. So change to them, once it occurs, it cannot be reversed. So an example for this is really children getting really frustrated if, let's say, the parent ordered a hamburger and they really hate, let's say, lettuce, and the person who took the order put lettuce by accident. So if you were to take off that lettuce or that tomato or whatever item they don't like on their burger in front of them, that is not going to work out for them. So the concept of irreversibility makes it really hard for them to logically think that, oh, well, we can fix this. Let's just take off the lettuce and your sandwich is perfectly fine. That doesn't work. They're stuck in that limitation because to them it's already broken, it's no good. One of the best examples that I have in my school, whenever I am watching kids leave at pickup time, is most of them like to open the door themselves. They want to push the door open. And if the parent pushed the door open, they might throw a tantrum or get very frustrated. And the parent would say, okay, let me close it and now you can push it. No, it's not the same. Then the kids usually get very upset and very stuck because, again, it's a limitation in the logic according to Piaget. So all of those limitations can be summed up in one concept that Piaget devised to kind of measure the pre-operational thinking and the development of logic in children. So he devised an experiment that is based on the concept of conservation. Conservation is basically that the amount of something, no matter what it is, if it's a mass or a number or a matter or a length, a volume of something, all of those types of conservation will stay the same despite any changes in the way they look. So it doesn't matter how they look, as long as I have the same amount, then they maintain that concept. So all four characteristics of pre-operational thought are evident in the conservation tasks, according to Piaget. So children really usually have a hard time understanding the concept of conservation because of those four limitations that we discussed. An explanation of this would be that when you look at an experiment of conservation, you start off with two glasses of water, for example, with the exact same amount. And you, in front of the child, you pour one glass in a longer container. The same amount of water, you just pour it into a taller or narrower glass. And then you ask the child which one contains more. And usually the child is going to focus on the appearance and choose the one that is taller. So despite the fact that you poured the exact same amount of liquid in front of them, they will still choose the taller glass, and their answer would be that this one has more. Now, according to Piaget, he said that young children fall to understand conservation of volume, number, matter, and length because they focus on what they see. So focus is the limitation of centration. On what they see is the limitation of focus on appearance. And they notice only the immediate condition. Again, it's what the state of the glass is right now, not what it was before, without thinking that they can reverse the process to recreate what was there a moment ago. Again, irreversibility. So as you can see, centration, focus on appearance, static reasoning, and irreversibility are all examples of why they would think that the two glasses that started out with the same amount of water or liquid now changed because they are centering their attention and focusing on appearance and thinking that nothing can be changed or undone the way it was 5 minutes ago. So here's an example of liquid conservation. Another example with the number conservation. You can start out with the same amount of pieces of candy or balls or checkers, whatever you want to use to make an example of. And you can show the child that we have the exact same number. We have 6 in this row and 6 in this row, and they will agree that these are equal. But then once you spread out the coins or the candy or whatever you're using and ask them the question of which one has more, they will again focus on appearance and they will choose the longer one because they center their attention on how it looks, the appearance of how it looks, and the fact that they cannot understand or comprehend or cognate that you can change it back to the way, irreversibility, it was before. So with liquid, number, matter, and length, you will see the same example being played out in the video that I'm attaching to the slide. So take a look at the mind of a preschooler and the concept of conservation.